Hi folks, my name is Gerdes. I'm just a professor trying to give you context in the war in Ukraine. Sometimes when I'm reading articles trying to make sure I'm current on what's going on each day, I see an article that'll pop up and I'm like, okay, that has to become a video. This is one of those times. Okay, so the article asserts Ukraine has lost 500,000 troops. Ex-prosecutor general says. Okay, well, that sounds pretty convincing right from the title. Kyiv must come clean on the true scale of the losses. This is by, according to Yuri Lutsenko, exists. Okay, who is this guy? This is Yuri Lutsenko, and I looked him up. He's not like pro-Russian or anything along those lines. But what's going on here? Let's dig a little deeper. Ukraine's leaders should frankly admit that they have lost 500,000 service members since the start of the conflict with Russia, and that the monthly casualty rate is at around 30,000. Former Prosecutor General Yuri Lutsenko has said. Now, I haven't been able to actually find the actual quote of 500,000, and apparently it's from a video that, so he could have said this. I can't track down the video. I saw it recaptured on Telegram, and I saw it in the original article that this is based on, but I can't actually find him saying it. So maybe he said it, and okay, then let's say he did say it. Would the former prosecutor general know that? I don't know, but I don't know that he said it. President Vladimir Zelensky's government could convince reluctant citizens to join the fight by publicly admitting the heavy losses on the battlefield and declaring that the country's very existence is in jeopardy, he believes. Ukrainians, quote, now he's actually quoting, must know how many have died and then all the debates about the mobilization will be settled, unquote. He said. So that's the first place where we're actually quoting him in this article. Speaking to the country's media on Wednesday, the former official proposed a number of steps to address the draft dodging and corruption that is hampering the country's conscription efforts. Quote, again, quote, they should say how many Ukrainians have died. I know that this news will be received badly, but there's no other way to bring out of the comfort zone millions of those who hide behind bogus stories that everyone can serve except me, unquote, Lukashenko said. Okay, so while we're dealing with this 500,000, to put it in context, the Russians almost always will, whatever the news is from Ukraine, they'll always say, it's far worse and it's far better for us or far worse for Ukraine. So recently we saw, for example, that here's on the losses of Russian occupiers in Ukraine. This was as of today, 365,170. And then about a month ago, a little less than a month ago, U.S. intelligence assessed Ukraine war has cost Russia 315,000 casualties. So if it's 300 to 365, somewhere in there, the Russians are going to say, well, there's 500,000 on the other side, which is actually pretty generous of them because they usually give like an 8-to-1 or a 10-to-1 ratio in every battle that they cover. So the Ukrainians are catching up by that thought. Okay, let's keep reading. According to Lutsenko, this shock would lead to large queues of recruitment offices, as had occurred in February 2022. Another important measure, according to the former official, would be the campaign to send members of the Ukrainian elite to the front line, right? They should have a part, they should be part of this as well. They shouldn't be exempted just because they're family of the elite. The army should not be all workers. Here he's quoting again. Quote, the army should not be all workers and peasants. Everyone should fight for Ukraine, he stated, arguing that this would encourage ordinary citizens who he said have a very strong sense of justice. Okay, and that's a fair point, that everybody should have to do their part, or, you know, that's legitimate. There's nothing wrong with that. Zelensky said in December that the Ukrainian military had asked him to mobilize another 450 to 500,000 soldiers to make up for battlefield losses. Is that where they're getting the 500,000? Because it doesn't make sense otherwise. First, he didn't quote it. Second, does he actually know the figure? And where's it coming from, this number? Okay, so let's try to unpack this a little bit. We already talked about the losses on the other side. So where did this come from? Well, we see it on RTVI. What is RTVI? If we look at ground news, here's the article itself, the original article, and there was only one article, and the only source was RTVI that broke this story. RTVI is the only source listed here. So okay, there's one source, and then RT is doubling down on that. What is RTVI? If we go down to the bottom, we'll find it Russia. Moscow is the address, so that's where this article comes from. Now, they said, the former prosecutor general of Ukraine said there's 500,000 military personnel killed. He said it on Moy TV channel. Can't find that. But it also talked about the Stranya UA in its Telegram post. This corresponding video was there. But even then, I wouldn't be able to speak it. But if you can go look at it and see what was being said there. Okay, let's look at this. It's being reposted. Here's the Eurasian Times. It will be a shock. Ukraine lost 500,000 soldiers. So it's already taking on a life of its own. Here's the original Telegram channel. And you'll note at the bottom of this, in this note about it, let us note that Ukrainian command did not confirm the casualty figures officially named by Lutsenko, and it's here on Strana UA. If anybody's interested in looking at it, I'll see if I can link it below, and you can see for yourself and tell me if I'm wrong. Now, there's a number of scenarios. Maybe he said it. Okay, maybe he didn't, and that seems possible. Maybe he doesn't even know, that seems possible, but I am sure of this. That kind of thing will be picked up from here and from here, and it'll be picked up and repeated by the likes of Doug McGregor and Scott Ritter, and then it'll take on a life of its own. So you'll hear that in the propaganda cycle. That's how it'll work. And he didn't just take the 30,000 a month that he was talking about. 30,000 a month were being killed. He was talking about something recently. I don't know if that's true either, but that would be multiplied by 23, and then you'd get 690,000. So that's not it. I don't know where it came from exactly, but I know it will get repeated. Now listen, who you are is what you project. And I say that because this is important to understand Russian news. So, okay, if you are the kind of person that gives people the benefit of the doubt, then you're going to give the benefit of the doubt until you're proven otherwise. Okay? And then you'll handle people that way. If you're just kind of a jerk, you're going to assume the worst of people and that they're kind of a jerk, and then that's how you're going to proceed and see things. I say that to say this. What Russia actually does is, in their propaganda, they assume everybody else is doing this too. We're lying, everybody else must be lying. We're just putting our information out there, trying to get our narrative across, but they're not really seeking truth in any meaningful way like you and I are. So do we know that it's actually not 500,000? I don't know what the actual figure is. Everything that I've read for the last 670, 680 days, whatever it is now, tells me that seems very high. I can't prove it wrong, but it seems extremely high, especially when Ukraine has been on the defense for much of this war. Okay, I can't prove it, but I can also say I know RT lies regularly, and I just can't see them coming to the truth at this point. Now, whether that minister said it is a whole different question. And again, I'll put the link down below. Okay, that's what I had for you now. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the likes, the shares, the subscribes, and thank you for listening to me and hearing me think through this process. I hope that helped you. Thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.